Hello and welcome to another video. This is the third part of the Five Nights at Freddy's Unreal Engine game tutorial. This one's a bit different. I did do a bit of work off camera and I lost a recording or two, so we're going to have to do this one a bit different. So the main thing is I removed the sky. So I just removed the sky sphere, the directional light, and the atmospheric fog. And I made this map off camera just using the techniques from episode 2. And I added these doors and a flashlight to the player character. So I guess I'll just start with the flashlight. So what I did was I added a flashlight component, which is just, I clicked on the camera, added a spotlight, attached it to the camera. I called it flashlight light, because that's what it is. And then I set the visibility to false. In the graph and in project settings, I went to the input and added a flashlight button, which was F under action mappings. And then I put it on the event graph. I set the visibility of the flashlight light to get visible and then not, which is just what this does is it gets the opposite of what the flashlight is and then sets that as the new visibility. So it toggles correctly. And then we have to set the visibility of the light. So that works pretty much flawlessly. Just make sure the light is at 0, 0, 0, and it's not rotated. And you can give it a bit of inner cone angle for some realism, but we'll change that later. In the game, you should notice that it turns on and off with the F key. The other thing I added was a interaction system, which I'll show off now. Project settings. You can still use this as a tutorial. Just make sure you set everything up as I did, as I'm going to show you everything. So I added a action mapping called key interact. The key is pretty important here. And then I added 2 interaction methods, E and left mouse button. I might remove left mouse button because I might be using that for something else later. So E is interact key. And then I went to blueprints, BPI. I made a folder called BPI, and I made a blueprint interface called BPI_player. I made this by right-clicking and going to blueprints, blueprint interface. Open that. I clicked new function, and then it made this, and I called it interact. And then I made an input on interact, and I called it player ref, and then I set the class to BP first person character you know. And then in the first person character I set up the logic, which is input action key interact, and then a line traced by channel. And then the start of the line was the world location of the first person camera. So I got this, get world location here. And that was the start of the line trace. And the end was the forward vector multiplied by 200 plus the world location, which basically just means it's in front of the camera by 200 units and it's at the world location of the camera relative. So it just draws a line, just 2 meters, that ends 2 meters in front of wherever the camera's looking. You can see here, file save, set this to persistent. I play and I press E, creates this line, and it makes a little box when it hits something. And then this return value returns whether returns whether if it hit anything at all. Put that into a branch. If it hit something, it would get the out hit, break hit result, and interact with the hit actor. The function we made in the blueprint interface. Make sure you have this little envelope icon on your interact, and set the player ref to self. You can just do that by dragging off self. And the door. So in the door blueprint, I just went to game, blueprints. I should probably show how I imported the mesh, honestly. So I made a folder called meshes map door, and I made the material, which I'm sure you guys know how to do at this point. I got this door off Sketchfab, which is where most models come from. And I imported this door. You might have to look at another tutorial for this, but I put the door so that the hinges are on the x-axis, on this red line here. So I did this in Blender and made sure the opposite side of the door, handle, was on the origin point of the model and on the x-axis. So that makes it so it rotates correctly when you interact with it. Otherwise, you'll be doing a lot of animation work for no reason, because the origin point is wrong. As you can see here, it actually rotates on the hinge because of the origin I set. This arrow doesn't really mean much. It's just a quirk of my engine version. So, after that, I made the door blueprint in blueprints map door, BP door. And this one's pretty simple. I'll show you how I made that. Going to blueprint props. For you, it might be class or class defaults, but it's wherever it says interfaces. And add here. No implemented interfaces. So I added the one we made. And then after that, I did right click. You got to compile and save. Make sure you compile and save. Right clicked, interact, and then event interact. Grab that, put it into a flip flop, which just switches the output whenever it gets called. And then off here, add timeline. Might have to write add timeline. Yeah, here we are. TL toggle. The A goes into play, B goes into reverse. In the timeline, you've got to double click it. Add a float track. Make the length something short, like 0.5. Call this track alpha. For you, the key to add a keyframe might be different. In the newer version, I know it's right click and then add keyframe. For me, it's shift click. I set the first one to 0, 0. And then the second one to 0.5, 1. Expand the map. Right click the first one. Cubic auto. Cubic auto. Then I can close this. And then on the update, I've got the SM door. Set relative rotation. On the update, the new rotation will lerp rotator. Alpha into alpha, shortest path. And it will lerp from 0, 0, 0 to 0, 0, negative 90. And I'll just make it open 90 degrees. So now, when we play, actually first I'll place the door down in the office. You place the door down and then you play, then interact, it will open. That's the general gist for this episode. Sorry for not actually recording it, I lost it. So, see you in the next one.